This is a message to all my supporters of this podcast. I'm introducing a new supporters program. You can contribute a small amount as a one-off payment to show your love for this podcast. Thank you in advance for all your contributions. This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, created and hosted by Mark Hayward. I am a corporate employee with an entrepreneurial mindset. This podcast will help and support you with new ideas about business. These are my thoughts, ideas, and comments. Today, we've got a really interesting interview with Tim Fargo. We'll go through his journey and his career. So looking forward to that. One last thing, if you want to give me any feedback, things that you'd like to hear, like people you'd like me to interview, please link into absolutebusinessmindset@gmail.com. Over to the podcast. Hello, Tim. How are you?
Hey, Mark. I'm great. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on.
I'm really good. So looking forward to talking about quite an eventful career that you've had. Lots of different interesting sort of angles that you've gone into. So, but as I always do, I'm going to go all the way back to your degree. So you did a finance degree in Florida Atlantic University. So what did you learn, or what did you like about that degree?
That's correct. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Because you're breaking up a bit on my end. Sorry for that.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go for it.
Okay. Well, the reason I studied finance was I always considered myself a bit of a marketer. I delivered newspapers and cut grass and all the other, ran errands for people. My dad was a really tough sell on giving me money, so it was easier for me to just go make it somewhere else. But I kind of had that selling skill set, but I felt like knowing the numbers would really help me down the line. Especially, I figured in the case of a recession, whether you're losing it or making it, you always have to count it. So
Yes.
that was really honestly. That was my fundamental. Was what's the safest fallback I can have? And so if I can be a corporate finance guy, that would be sort of my fallback position if things didn't go the way that I wanted. So, that was the reason I studied that, because I could have easily studied marketing, which would have been an easier major, but I just felt like, I wanted some skills that weren't necessarily. I think marketing, from my perspective, is probably a little bit more intuitive, but finance and things like that, you kind of have to know the process and the systems and things like that in order to be able to really understand it.
Did you enjoy it, or was it a bit of a struggle to get through because it was quite not necessarily your natural subject area?
I did great. I loved it. I thought it was. The lovely thing about a lot of accounting and finance is you can actually definitively say when you're done.
Yes.
But if you're working on a pitch or you're working on an essay or something like that, I don't know. When are you done?
Yeah.
You can keep tweaking ad infinitum, but if you've got a trial balance to do and it foots correctly, you can leave. You're done.
Yeah.
So
then you went on to do an MBA. Was that a natural course that you thought that you needed to establish yourself in the market, or was it something that you just thought was of interest?
That was a lifeline. That was me coming back from Central America, not having a clue what I was going to do next. And I knew that University of Miami, because I had pretty good scores on the GMAT. I don't know if you use it in the UK, but it's kind of the MBA acceptance exam.
Right, okay. Yep.
And I did pretty well on it. So I'd gotten a full ride offered to me by University of Miami. And so I'm landing back in the States. I'm like, well, I'm 30. What am I doing now? So I got into the program, took out a student loan, started working, whatever. I just kind of needed to get back into circulation. And I thought I was going to finish it. But then I ran into a couple things happened. One, I got an offer to go start a business with a couple guys. And the guy who I was the grad assistant for was giving me a lot of grief about that. I only worked, I worked in the evenings and sometimes till like 2 a.m, whatever. But I would do whatever research he needed done, and I taught some classes as well.
Okay.
But he decided he wanted my availability to be longer. So we fought, and unsurprisingly, he won. And I said, okay, well, whatever. So I went and started the business with these other guys.
And was that the events company?
No, that was
around a bit. Was that a little bit earlier, the events?
The events company was, I had just finished undergrad, and I was working with an IT company, but me and a buddy of mine put on some events, and man, I mean, in retrospect, that is like one of the hardest ways to ever make money.
Right.
Because you're doing something, I mean, even a Broadway play, at least you're going to do it more than once.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to have a run, right? So or a West End play, whatever. So, it's going to run for, let's say, 6 months, 2 months, 2 years, whatever. Yeah. So you'll gain some expertise along the way, and presumably you kind of knew a little bit about it before you ever got there. But with events, they're all different, and there's a zillion people trying to give you input, and depending on what the project is. But you're trying to create something. It's got all the characteristics of a really bad business.
Were you hosting the events, or were you doing events for other people?
It was a bit of a mix, right?
Okay.
Like, one thing we did was a scavenger hunt, and the point was, like, we made a fun event, but then if you were a sponsor, we would have the people in the event go get something at your business location, because our logic was, and the sell to the business owner was, this isn't an ad to tell somebody what you do. We're going to bring, 500 people to your location, our own account.
Yeah.
But then, like, I did a bike race for a shopping center. So there was permitting, and I mean, every things. You there?
Yeah, sorry, Tim. It must have been my internet connection has thrown me out. It should be all right again. So, just to recap,
tell me where we left off.
Yeah, so we were talking about the events business in the 80s, and you were saying that you were doing a bit of the hosting as well as the event side of it, and you started describing what you actually were doing.
Right. So, do you want me to just launch in?
Yeah, just recap on it. That'd be great.
Okay. So the events business was, I mean, we did events on our own account, and we did events for other people.
Yeah.
And an example of events we did for ourselves, like, one was a scavenger hunt, and people would drive around town, and it would take them on a predestined course, and you had to drive the course because there were questions you couldn't answer if you weren't sitting where we wanted you to be.
Yeah.
So the pitch to business owners was, if you were a sponsor, we actually would have the event come to your location.
Right.
Like, we had a guy that sold car stereos.
Okay.
And he had, for the installation, they had a couple bays, where people would drive their cars in, and the techs would install the radios and speakers and stuff.
Yeah.
So in that place, we mounted, with their help, a toilet to a big plank of wood.
Yeah.
And then we set up a portable basketball hoop, and people would, like, that was the event for that business, was you sat on a toilet and shot baskets. But it got people there, and they were there long enough. They gave, like, everyone got like a little, like, coupon or whatever to come back and buy something.
Yeah.
And so that worked really well for the people, the sponsors. But then, as another example, on the other side, I mean, like, I did a bike race for a shopping center, and so just pulling permits, having police there, having a course, having it measured, reaching out to that, like, the cycling community, but then also wanting there to be a ride, like a more leisurely ride for normal human beings that don't dress in Lycra every, third day or something. So, but in either case, I mean, I enjoyed that business in the sense that, I mean, it was really fun because you got to do, like, all kinds of bonkers stuff. But as I was mentioning, I mean, there is no replication. I mean, you make stuff, you create stuff, and then you just burn it down and start over.
So when I was doing my research on you, and you said you did an events business, I thought it was literally with guest speakers that were talking about a subject or anything like that. But actually, you're actually quite a lot more creative than that, weren't you?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hi, I'm Alex, the host of X Health Show. Meet the future of healthcare. Think X-Men, that's X Health. Actual superheroes behind programming living cells to cure cancer once and for all. Tech that detects preterm delivery in seconds, brain-computer interface, or apps that employ AI to match you, your disease, with the best treatment. X Health Show brings to you visionaries who push the boundaries of healthcare from Switzerland, the heart of Europe, and the most innovative country in the world. Let me introduce you to their startups. Head to X Health Show, meet the future of healthcare. Happy to greet you there.
Yeah, well, the idea was, I mean, one of the things, like, I really liked, like, road rallies, scavenger hunt. I liked the idea of events that would put like, where I could bring people to your location.
Yeah. It
was kind of like sitting in from a sponsor's perspective. What can I give a sponsor that they can't get somewhere else?
Yeah.
And I thought, if I can bring people to your business and you can show them what you got.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more powerful in my mind than any ad. And what you do with that customer is up to you or potential customer.
Was it all local to you, or did you have to travel with it as well?
I just did local stuff. Oh my God, I can't even imagine doing it
in a city,
because there's so much stuff. Like, I mean, you've got to know, like, the local press and have some contacts, and and one of the things I mentioned, several times about that business, and what I think would be, I mean, on one hand, it'd be interesting now because you can maybe reach people through social media. But eyeballs are so spread out now.
Yeah.
I mean, this business ran back in the day when I lived in Boca Raton, Florida, and I knew a bunch of people at the Boca Raton News, and I got lots of ink in the Boca Raton News, which drove people to my events.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a hugely different dynamic than even if I knew all the same positions in that local paper today, it wouldn't do anything like what it did back then, because people are looking at a million other things.
See, those businesses are all about attention. It's the same thing that social media is about, is gathering people's attention. But the problem is these days, it's just much more spread. So Twitter is, or Instagram or Facebook is great places to be able to gather communities, but it takes a while. You need to gather up a reputation. I think it's the similar principles. It's just doing it in a different way now, using social media instead of, as you were saying, like local press.
Right, and I mean, in that context, I mean, I suppose the real benefit you'd have today would be building that community. Like, so if you had people that liked your events, you could keep, like, there's a couple, maybe it's even a family, that run a series of running events, like, like athletic run, like 5Ks and stuff,
mm.
that do a bunch of stuff in the area where I have a place in Florida, in St.
Right.
Petersburg. And I think that's what they do. They have a really good database of people who have done like email. They have an email list of all the people that have done their races.
Yep.
So when they want to hold a shamrock run for, you know, St. Patrick's Day,
Yeah.
you know, they know how far out to like plan it. They know all the people in the different communities near to where they are. So they know who to talk to, like a public safety officer or whatever, to get permission to close certain streets and things like that. So once you have that, I mean, that's the key from my perspective in whatever you do is you've got to have at least enough of a theme that you start bringing the same people back.
So there's a guy that I sort of indirectly follow on. He started on YouTube. There's a guy called The Body Coach, and he's big into doing HIIT training and stuff. And indirectly, I ended up following him on Instagram, and he did something. He lives in, so I'm in West London. He lives in West London as well, and he got together a group of people. Like he's been followed by millions of people, but he was obviously targeted to West London. He got people running. There's a park in London called Richmond Park, which is well known for deer. So anyone in the UK, or anyone in London anyway, would know about the deers in Richmond Park. But anyway, he got a group of people together. And there's a hill on Richmond Park where you run up some steps, and it's it's like, I don't know, 500-600 meters all uphill. And the idea was to do it 10 times, and sort of how many people could he get there. So he is leveraging the same people that you were leveraging to be able to do an event, in his sense, it's raising his profile. You were running a business. I think I really do think it's something I've realized relatively recently, that a lot of the techniques that were used, like your business was in the 80s with the events business, the principles are all the same. It's just the delivery mechanism is just different, and you just do it on social media instead. So and the other insight that I've had fairly recently is about how important email actually still is for businesses. Yes, it's great to have a social media presence, but actually that someone was telling me that they felt that there was still more power to sell with people's emails rather than selling on social media.
Oh, it's not even close, man. I mean, email is like, I'm trying to think of the right metaphor, but I mean, email is just significantly more powerful than anything on social media. I mean, social media, from my perspective, social media is a place where it's kind of like, I don't know, like people are wandering around. So you want to have like, you know, like the party looks fun and everything else. So people stroll in, right? And then you kind of give them a reason to stay. And then you do something, you know, you basically are walking people. If you're using social media as a business person, you should be walking someone into your sales funnel.
Yeah.
So you're doing social media stuff. So you get somebody's attention. Then they start following you. And then, you know, you put something out there like, hey, here's my free book on social media. Here's my free book on using IT in your marketing. Here's my free book on event planning, whatever. Yeah. And so you give that away. And of course, in the process, you get their email address.
Yeah.
Because if you have someone's email address, you've got a reasonable chance of closing them. I mean, on a statistically significant level, but on social media, I'm not saying it's not possible, but you almost have to be a bit famous already for social media to work as an actual selling mechanism. At least I mean, perhaps if you had something that was just utterly remarkable, it would defy that rule. But I would say in general, for most existing products, being able to reach out to someone either, and I think the new thing is bulk SMS. If you can reach people on, I mean, I'm on a computer right now, but it's crazy how much more I use my phone now than I do like my desktop.
Yeah.
I mean, I use the desktop for actual like work. Like if I need to crank out a spreadsheet,
Yeah.
or, I need to write letters and stuff, because doing that stuff on a phone is just kind of maddening.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think I mean, the one place you can almost guarantee the majority of people you're trying to sell to will be looking at some point in the day is at their phone.
Yeah. I heard a statistic that the average person, and that's not even a high user, touches their phone anything from 100 to 200 times. Just anything from checking social media, your email, the time. Sometimes even people don't have watches and they use the time. But the touch time on mobiles is just phenomenal at the moment. And as you say, I do exactly the same. If there's a piece of work that I want to do, I will still do it on my laptop, but the interactions, all of my emails I do on my phone these days. I don't designate time to go onto my laptop to do emails. It's definitely the touch point for modern technology society, isn't it? It's everyone uses it all the time.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy. But back on that marketing piece. I mean,
Yes.
And I haven't done phone-based marketing. I'd like to, but I do know what I've done with email has been just extraordinary. I mean, it's diminished over time because, I mean, successful marketing tends to get like really oversaturated, and then like marketing is a little bit like antibiotics or something. I mean, you use it too much, you develop an immunity. Then you need to like find a new way to like conquer the bug that you're after, so to speak. But I mean, the results have declined, but I would still say it's significantly stronger than anything you could do on social.
And I do wonder if it's psychologically people are still geared for work or business on email, because I still use email a lot. I use an instant messenger in my job, but that's only for internal purposes. Email still is, in the business world, still relied upon hugely, isn't it? So I think psychologically, where people look at their phones more for social things, for phoning people, that's less now, but texting, WhatsApping people, I think that what the design of email still is, I totally agree, is still quite a powerful tool to build up a database and build up marketing to be able to spread your message or your products. Because I was talking to someone fairly recently, they're saying products still sell better over email, even though we can do blanket, even on LinkedIn, even though you can do blanket advertising on LinkedIn, still the return rate, the return on investment on email is just hugely more.
Yeah, no, I have yet to see any social media that can rival it. But having said that, it's like it's a process. So I mean, the social media is the place where you get attention, and then what do you do with that attention? And that's actually something I think a lot of people fail in to a certain degree.
Is converting that, yeah.
Well, they either do, and because I'm in this business now, right? I'm in the social media business, and people either just constantly blather on about their product, which makes everyone want to vomit and never look at your feed, or they don't mention hardly anything about what they do. And it's funny because like I tweet about my product, Social Jukebox, probably every 3 hours. I mean, it's a different post. I mean, they're all spaced out. There's all kinds of different ads popping up. I still get, I mean, and for all the people, because every now and then I'll have a follower. It's like, I've seen that ad like before, man. I still have people saying, so what do you do? It's in my profile. I run an ad every 3 hours, and I still have people asking me, what do I do? So there was a political consultant many years ago, and I think it was actually little bit topical. He was working, I think, for Nixon. And
Okay.
Nixon was lamenting giving the same stump speech over and over again.
Mm.
And the consultant said to him, about the time that you're going to be ready to throw up because you're having to say this speech again, people will just begin to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he said, so just, you know, kind of immunize yourself to it, because that's the nature of the beast. You just have to keep pounding and pounding and pounding. And it's only gotten worse, you know, with all the
politics is a really
social
interesting area.
platforms.
Yeah, politics is a really interesting area because the repetition of your message. I was reading this article. There was a political consultant who, topically again, was working for the Conservatives in earlier on in the Cameron years. Anyway, about 10 years ago, something like that. And he at an election was saying, you need to say these three things: the economy, the economy, and the economy. From their viewpoint, that was the only thing that needs to be talked about. So you were having Conservative people on TV and things like that that was saying, they'd be asking about something topical and they would maneuver the conversation into the economy. And this political advisor was like, that is your distinguishing feature, and therefore you need to keep on repeating that message, because it won't be until someone's heard it 10 times will they actually filter through and actually work out that the economy is the most important thing. So I think it's fascinating when you hear these political advisors giving their input on how to influence mass populations, like for a population for a general election.
Sure. Well,
So,
but what's interesting too, though, and I think a lot of people go, well, that's politics, it's different, but it's not. I mean, it is in a way. I mean, but I mean, it's no different than, okay, yeah, selling a mattress is different than selling Pepsi, is different than selling a PC, is different than selling a phone. I mean, there's always nuance, right?
yeah.
But still, it still seems at the end of the day that you're still trying to convince someone to do what you want them to do.
Yes.
Which is,
and that's
really,
sales, isn't it? It's persuasion.
Yeah,
it's sales.
yeah, absolutely. So, and I think it's good to kind of take a bit of an interdisciplinary approach. Like, if you're trying to excel in your own market, don't look at your competition for ideas, because then you're just going to look like a Me Too guy.
Everyone else, yeah.
But you can look at what other people are doing in similar, or even sometimes even dissimilar industries, and like maybe get an idea, like, hey, I wonder, maybe you can tweak it a bit and make it your own.
Yeah.
And that's, from my perspective, that's where a lot of great ideas come from.
Yeah, exactly. And you're absolutely right. Different areas, different businesses, different areas. This is why I do this podcast, to hear people's, because there are themes that come through with a lot of the guests that I have, that sales is important, marketing is important. Yes, you need your finance guy. Yes, you need your lawyer. Yes, you need someone to do whatever, your tax return. But essentially, sales and marketing, whatever industry you're in, is critical, is crucial for a business to grow and to be profitable. So I think you're absolutely right. Cutting across different industries is always an interesting insight. So I wanted to just touch on something. So you were quite entrepreneurial, even though you did finance degrees and an MBA. You were entrepreneurial. Where did this come from? Was it because family or friends that were entrepreneurial?
Well, the first bit I mentioned, which was my dad wasn't very good about giving me money when I was a kid, that kind of started it. But I looked at a few things as I got older. I had done that, and then when I was in college, I tutored people in accounting, finance, stats, econ.
Right.
And I really enjoyed that. I made great money. By student standards, I was just killing it, And because this is in the 80s, and I was making $25 an hour tutoring people.
Right, yeah.
So I really liked that. And so probably the biggest event was I'd gone with a friend of mine to a party, and there was a ton of people there who were pretty well off, which was not. I didn't grow up in that kind of environment.
Okay.
I mean, if somebody had a nice car that my family knew, that was like a big deal. Oh my God, he's got a Cadillac. That was my upbringing. It was very, very close. It was not quite blue collar, but man, just like a cusp above.
Right.
Anyway, I met all these people who, like, including the guy that owned the house. This big, I don't know, 500 square meter place with all kinds of all the trimmings, so to speak. Nice guy, but as I'm talking to him, I mean, I wasn't in awe of his intellect or anything. It wasn't like I went, wow, this guy is just like, Einstein, move over, here's your competition. I mean, he was relatively bright, but I wasn't blown away. And I got that impression from quite a few people that were there. And it was kind of then that I realized, like, dude, the only difference between you and these people is they're doing it and you're just sitting around thinking about it.
Right.
Because this isn't magic. Because some of the people even struck me as less than bright, let's say.
Right.
But I think, it is. It's just you find your niche in the market that you know how to work it. And I think that's the underappreciated aspect. I mean, of course, business can be really hard and things like that, but it's not. If you find the right intersection of what you want to do and a problem that you can solve for other people that they really need, it's not as difficult as people might imagine.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents. And I mean, and for me, I mean, of course, these are like bigger businesses that Branson has done. But I mean, to my knowledge, Branson hasn't really created a single new business. In
He's
terms
just
of
differentiated himself, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's taken, Virgin Rail, in the UK, Virgin Mobile, Virgin Airways. I mean, he's gone into existing industries and he's just out executed his competition.
Yep.
And he picked industries like the airlines who, when he started Virgin Atlantic, I mean, BA was just caught completely flat-footed. And the same thing with the mobile carriers. It's like all Branson did is came in and said, hey, we're gonna care about you as a customer. Yeah. Which isn't really revolutionary, but in that industry it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you have people going, yeah, hi, this is Evelyn. How can I help you today? And you get somebody on the phone that sounds like they're one step from suicide as your customer.
They're not going to sell you anything, are they?
Yeah. Like, Evelyn, maybe I can help you. Are you feeling okay?
Shall we have a chat? How are you?
Maybe you should seek some counseling. No, but I really do. I mean, I think that's, like I say, that's the underappreciated piece, I think, for a lot of people, is that it's not incumbent upon you to be like this ingenious inventor that creates this like magnificent new thing in order to be successful. I mean, of course, everyone's got their own idea about what success is, but if you'd like to make a nice living and all that kind of thing, I mean, it doesn't require, finding a new way to, travel on the roads or something.
So your first main business, so Amiga Insurance.
Right, an investigative company.
Investigative, sorry. So you co-founded that. Did you bootstrap that business? Did you do it from your bedroom, or did you? Yeah.
Extra bedroom, credit card, dog sitting next to me.
And so you co-founded that with someone. Did you were you already friends, or was it someone that you external?
I started the business, and then I was running an investigative firm with some other guys, and they seemed more interested in enjoying themselves than in maybe running the business.
Okay.
So I approached them and I said, look, I can take care of this, no problem. But the best thing would be if you guys go do whatever you want to do, and let me just take care of this thing, basically. Polite way of saying, if you guys could just get out of the way.
Get away.
But they weren't willing to do it. They thought, oh, well, you don't understand. I'm like, guys, you already have me handling marketing, accounting, IT, operations. There's not a whole lot left that I'm not doing. So, and they said no. So I left. And when I left, I took the two best investigators with me. And I was pretty sure they'd go anyhow, because I think it was pretty obvious to anybody in the company that I was kind of running the thing. And so those were the first two people. One of those partners got bought out by me about a year and a half in, just because great guy, not really suited to be wouldn't be happy just being an owner and like just an employee. He wanted to be like a top level manager, and he just didn't really have what it took for that, unfortunately. So anyhow, the other dude that stayed on, we built the thing up over 7 years and then sold it.
So it was investigating insurance, was it?
Insurance fraud. I mean, I'm pretty sure in the UK, your workers' insurance is through the government. Like if you get injured at work, your wages and things like that.
They're supported by the business. That you have certain policies that you have. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That it's the same. So if you were ill for, I don't know, you broke your leg skiing, or someone I remember that did this, they broke their leg skiing, and it was quite serious, and they were out of the office for a substantial period of time, but they had some type of insurance. I can't remember what the word is that they call it, but it's a type of insurance, like a health insurance sort of. And
in the States, we'd call it disability.
Disability. Okay. So, and so that's all built into your package, working for definitely for large corporations, not sure smaller companies, but definitely.
Well, I'm talking about it like an injury that would occur actually on the job.
It could be. It doesn't have to be, but it could be.
Okay, because like in the States, workers' compensation insurance, which covers workers for injuries that occur in the course of their duties.
Yeah.
Disability insurance is to protect someone, usually bought by the individual, sometimes bought by a company for key employees.
Yeah.
To basically provide someone an income if they're injured outside of work, or in some other way incapacitated. Like, I don't know, you could have a stroke and be unable, if you were, say, the communications director and you couldn't speak anymore, that would be a problem.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so people would say they were hurt, and unsurprisingly, some of them weren't.
Yeah.
So we would go do video surveillance of people who were suspected of faking it. Now, sometimes the person who hired us was correct, and of course, sometimes the person who hired us was just annoyed by the person or whatever, or there were red flags, but they turned out to be invalid. But it's a very steady flow of work, because people are getting hurt all the time, and the companies selling the policies, or in some instances, large companies will self-insure. They'll pay workers out of their own pocket.
Okay.
So regardless of who we were working for, you were always getting new cases. So it was building relationships with adjusters at insurance companies in some cases, or third-party administrators of people who were self-insured. But we had this pool of clients who gave work for that kind of thing, and we did that work. We started out in the Southeast, and by the time we sold, we were nationwide.
Wow, brilliant.
Yeah. So
what was it like selling your business?
Wow. Well, the money part was certainly gratifying. It was difficult in the sense that, you've got a business that it's not an asset. It's not like, if you run like a big, I don't know, Google or a car company, you've got tooling and equipment and things like you have assets and momentum, and there's certain things like it's not easy to just like people can't just move over next door and start the same thing, which in the investigative business they kind of can. So my point being, you've got a completely staff-based business. Your business gets on an elevator and drives home at the end of every day. So when you're selling a business like that, the need to keep it completely quiet is really, really, really important. So we actually rented another office in the same building, and like it had a fake nameplate on the door, and we set up a little war room there. Like we'd go down after hours with all these files, and built up. Basically, that suite was for anyone who came in to do due diligence or to talk about a deal. But it was, it took from start to finish, it probably took close to a year by the time we closed.
Wow.
Well, because first they came in, the banker I hired was a buddy of mine, and he had just left a bigger investment bank and started kind of a boutique with a buddy of his. So it was perfect timing because these guys were like seasoned veterans that had worked on much, much, much bigger deals. And it came in and provided, I would have never got their level of expertise out of a Goldman or, someone like that. They would have just been like, oh yeah, they've handed me off to some guy who ink was still wet on his diploma. So, but we had to kind of dress the thing up, and then you bring people in. What you put the word out that what you're doing, and then a certain number of people are going to come look.
So did you want to sell, or were you approached?
Yeah.
Totally. You wanted
Totally.
to sell by that point, right? Okay.
I've kind of, it was sort of my plan from the beginning. Like, I didn't know how it was going to break out. And obviously your plans don't always go the way you want. But I didn't start out going, the investigative business, now this is what I want to be doing in my golden years. It was more, that is a business it's like a cottage industry. There's very low barriers to entry. All you need is a license, which generally is a very modest amount of cash, and you've never been convicted of a felony. So we're not talking about like clearing a 7-foot bar on the high jump. It's pretty easy to get into that business. So there were a lot of market participants. So it's a great point for people who are listening and maybe think about, I don't know if I should go into that business. There's so many people in it. It doesn't matter how many people are in the business. It matters if there's anybody that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of good, smaller companies. But the problem with most investigative shops that we competed with is that they were run by somebody who was really an investigator by trade.
Right.
So they didn't have a mindset, and I'm not saying I'm any genius, but it's more that old saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
Yes.
One-eyed man being me.
Yeah.
But by having an idea about building infrastructure, building process, trying to create replicatable results, and things like that, we were able to outperform our competitors because like when we built the IT system, we structured the way things worked that you couldn't even put a case in the schedule until certain things were done. Right. And they had to be checked off by a manager. Yeah. So like
you built processes.
Well, and the process was built in. You couldn't, you'd have to do a lot of gymnastics to sort of break the machine, so to speak.
Yeah.
So as a result, you can't guarantee a result in an investigation. There's too many variables, but you just go in and try to control the variables you can.
But it's very interesting that the scaling businesses, a lot of it is down to creating processes, automating things, fail-safe scenarios that you've built into it. So it sounded like at that time your business was scaling and so how many employees did you have? What was the sort of makeup of your?
Well, we started with 3, and when we sold, I don't know, we had like 310 or something.
Wow, that's a substantially sized business, isn't it?
Yeah, it was nuts. It's like you see people in the hallway, and I have no idea who that is. Well, and the thing is, then you're like nervous you're going to say something, because it could be someone there just fixing a piece of equipment as well. You know, so yeah. Anyhow, but it was fun. I mean, I'm glad I built it. I'm glad I sold it. But I would say that from a personal perspective, if I had started with the idea of keeping it, once we got to about 40, 50 people, that would have been awesome. Because that was like still kind of a family. Like we really had a great time. But once you get up, over 100 people, and I mean, it's just, you're twisting dials and doing stuff. I mean, it's not that you don't, and it's not a question of like caring about people, but you just have to kind of look at it in a different way. Yeah. Or that was my experience anyway.
So, so that's very, very interesting. I think a lot of my listeners that are either in business or have businesses would find great insight into selling a business and how that's done. So thank you for that. That was very, very useful. So tell me about your current business. Is it Tweet Jukebox?
Social Jukebox.
Social Jukebox. Sorry.
It started as Tweet Jukebox, and then it became Social Jukebox. And that business started. So I sold in September of 2003, and then I wouldn't say I didn't do anything. I mean, I was doing stuff like I was making investments in businesses, and I was buying land and splitting it into pieces and selling it off, and just little projects.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, maybe I should do something more. And so I wrote a book called Alphabet Success.
Yeah.
And was really happy about that, and thought, oh, this is great. Now I have a book. This will be the beginning of my writing and speaking career. And I quickly found out, like, nobody cares about your book. I mean, it's great in the context of it's kind of an expensive, arduous, really big business card. Like if you wanted to do something for someone and you were kind of a consultant or something, I could think of a book as being a really great tool to help a potential client frame who you are.
Yeah.
But you can probably even do that with a series of posts on LinkedIn or Medium or something.
So Alphabet Success was about goals and drive. Is that right?
What I did, I took, the reason it's called Alphabet is because I took the alphabet and I made every lesson an acronym, like ABC, DEF, so etc. And the best and worst thing about my book, the worst thing about it is people will constantly tell me, I read your book, or some people will say this, I read your book and I already knew everything in there. But the second question is, okay, I know you know it. Do you do it?
Yeah.
Because from my perspective and experience, the problem usually isn't a lack of knowledge. The problem is usually a lack of doing.
Yeah.
Like, people know it's good to say thank you, but they don't always do it.
Yeah.
They know that they should document their calls with a client, because that'll be really helpful the next time you talk to them, so you can seamlessly pick up a conversation, since you're having hundreds of them with different clients.
Yeah. But
some people get lazy and don't want to take notes. But if you do the stuff you're supposed to do, it all kind of comes together. So I'm willing, I mean, it's really the downside. If you're not famous and you don't write a book that's on a hot topic, it's not going to excite instant sales, because people want to know. I mean, Instagram's kind of a bit long in the tooth now, but for a while, I mean, for a very long time, any social media stuff was just like, people wanted to know how to succeed on Twitter, how to succeed on YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, I still think there's people in that, of that ilk, but in any event, if you come out with a more general book, I mean, I still sell a few every month, so that's
Okay.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what goals do you have now, as your book was about goals and setting up goals? What goals do you have at the moment?
My goal right now is I'm actually working with a digital marketer on trying to get a better handle on how to increase the number of subscribers for Social Jukebox.
Okay.
I mean, I came from a age where it's like, hey, Mark, how you doing? Let me take you over here and show you our, whatever, or how, what kind of chair are you looking for today? I mean, I was that kind of sales guy, like going to an office.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, do you have any investigations we can help you with today?
Yeah.
I mean, and you kind of knew who your market segment was and how to chase them, and now I mean, this is a very different world because I'm really in a kind of a B2C. My last business was B2B.
Yeah.
This is more B2C, a little bit of B2B, but it's also just looking at our SEO, looking at the stickiness of our site. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, that actually, it's interesting to me. I was talking to my son about this because he's actually studying IT right now.
Okay. All right.
And he's studying kind of like systems analyst, like being the marriage between operations and the IT guys, so that you can take the people who do the coding, who sometimes have difficulty communicating with other people.
Yeah. True.
And,
True.
and you act as liaison. And I told him, I said, by all means do what you're doing, but I can tell you that the hardest thing in the future is going to be to sell stuff. Because like when I ran Omega, I mean, there was a set of publications in my trade, and I knew if we got placement in those, if I wrote some articles for those publications, we got press out of that.
Yeah.
Those publications had events every year. Yeah. Because of my relationship as a writer, I ended up becoming a speaker. Then I wrote a little booklet called Claimants, Lies, and Videotape, which was how to use investigations. Yeah. So my point is, going back to, you asked about goals. I mean, to me, it's like, I really want to understand like how to crack the nut of how to really drive demand in this business. Cause I mean, we've got people, and I'm not saying, I mean, I'm happy with what I got. It's great. I mean, to be honest, after I sold the first thing, life was fantastic. It was just wanting something to do. Yeah. But since I'm doing it, it's like, okay, let's figure this out. Yeah. Cause like from the beginning, this might sound really weird, but it was such an accident. Like in the beginning, it's sort of like you're just sitting there one day and you're like, yeah, I guess this is a business.
Right. So you're an accidental.
You know what I mean? Like
businessman in this area.
I mean, Omega started as like, I am going to start this business. Yeah. And I mean, of course, there was like, I went through the motions, but because the initial code was just for me, I mean, it kind of morphed. It was like a bit of a passion project that morphed into a business. Right. Right. So it's taken a little while to kind of catch up with like me viewing it. I mean, I definitely have viewed it that way for a while now, but I mean, it's been 4 years. But it's a very different thing to start something. It's a very different thing to start something in that way. And it's also depending on your own desires. And as I mentioned earlier, like what people consider success. Look, I'm always happy to have more money. Anybody wants to send me some, my bank account is not full. But I'm not a guy. I don't care about having fancy cars. I don't care about, impressing anybody. I live a great life. I haven't experienced winter in like 10 years because I'm constantly, I'm a snowbird and have been from a very early age. So I guess as much as I want to grow the demand, it's like I'm more interested in just like, it's like a toy that I'm kind of messing around with.
So would you say a passion project? It sounds like your second business was a passion project. Do you think it's more rewarding to do something that you're accidental or you started doing as a bit of a passion project rather than, as you say, your Amiga, which was, I am going to set up a business because I want to deliver these things and I'm going to do that and that's what I'm going to do, where this sort of arose from an interest and then you started finding that there was an angle, business angle. Is it more rewarding, one or the other?
I wouldn't say it's more rewarding. It's just different. I mean, and in the first instance, again, this just depends on your personality, but I mean, I was like running for my life, if you know what I mean. Like to me, it was like, just grow, just grow. And because I knew that was going to be part of the key to getting a good sales price is having that really steep, like, growth curve.
Yeah.
And that proved to be true. But now, and it was great doing that. I mean, I definitely don't have the energy to like go out and do it again, or I wouldn't want to do it again. I suppose if I had to, I would, but not. And again, I mean, it's all based on your own profile of what you want, what you care about. But for me, this time it's like I'm interested in it, and I certainly care about my customers. But the main point is, like, I mean, I've had several clients that were just not pleasant.
Right.
There's a politically correct term.
Yes.
And so I just gave them some other options they could pursue instead of us, because life's too short, man. I don't want your money. If I will pay you double back your money just to please go away.
Just for you to go.
Well, but it is. I mean, it's such a, they talk about, when you have enough money to say those two very expressive things to someone.
Yes.
But what's the point of having it if you're never going to say it?
Yes.
If you know what I mean. So it's like, and I wouldn't ever say that just because I don't see the point in being rude, but I think if you're running a business and you can afford to, I mean, I actually wish I'd have done more of that at Omega.
Okay.
Because we had people that we let one customer go because they were just horrible, but there were a couple others that we wasted a lot of time on. And in retrospect, it was a mistake because it brought down morale to deal with them. We wasted a lot of time talking about it. Because for the average client, they sent us work. We went out, we did it, we billed them, they were happy. It was simple.
It was the 80-20 principle, isn't it? That 20% of your clients take up 80% of your time, isn't it? It's
Sure.
It's the stressful ones, which often aren't necessarily that profitable, but you don't want to give away a client. You don't want to get a client to walk away, do you? If you're building a business or scaling a business. So I would say it's really hard. I'm just on a slightly different tact, and I don't want to intrude too much about your family life, but what's it like living, would you say, from your family side as an entrepreneur?
Well, I mean, I think it's been kind of odd for my kids. When I was working a lot, they were really small. And by the time they're old enough to really remember, a lot of the day-to-day stuff had been handed off.
Okay, right.
So, I mean, I was definitely busy, but I was busy in kind of my own terms, if you know what I mean. Like in terms of I went to conferences if I wanted to be there, or if I felt it was warranted. If it was like a national conference, I would go. Regional conferences, I stopped going to.
Right.
Because there were just too many of them.
Yeah.
So my family life was actually, I mean, my kids saw quite a lot of me because I really did try to hire my way out of a job to where I was just asking questions and giving input to people who I thought were bright that I trusted, as opposed to trying to be the man, so to speak, which I think is a really bad way to go, unless you're extremely smart, and I'm not. so I spend a lot of time with my kids, and I would actually guess that as they get older, it'll probably be I have triplets, and they're 20 now.
Right.
And I think as they get a little bit older and maybe have a family of their own, they'll be like, how was Dad around all the time? Dad was just always around. And I mean, like I say, I mean, there were times I was busy and I was out of pocket, but if you compared me to even probably just a person working an average salary job, I mean, most days I didn't get to the office till 10.
Oh, right. Okay.
And this is we're talking like when my kids were 3, 4, 5. Because when they were 5 is when I sold. And then I was around a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe too much. But no, so I think that by the time they were old enough to notice, I mean, I was around quite a lot. So
that's good.
But I don't, I mean, I'm so far, knock on wood, they seem to be okay. So
I'm sure they are.
Doesn't seem to have hurt them too badly.
I'm going to jump around a little bit, but your angel investment side. So I think through you mentioned it a little bit earlier that you did a couple of deals and you did a couple of businesses that you invested in. Did you find that rewarding, or was that quite hard, turning people away, or actually giving them enough time for what they needed?
It was really easy because I never went out and solicited investors.
Okay.
But I did get stuff brought to me, and the stuff that got brought to me by people I trusted.
Right.
And if I didn't believe in both the idea and the people running it, I wouldn't go anywhere near it. Okay. And so, I mean, I still have one deal I did was just extraordinary. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's no harm to like talk numbers, but I put in 25 grand and I got almost $1 million back.
Wow. Right.
Within 5 years.
Yeah.
So that was better than saving 5 cents on a glass of tea. So, and the other deal, which I actually put more into, it's a great business, and I still hoping something will happen. But that's the nature of things, though. I mean, the guy who's the CEO is a friend of mine, and I mean, we don't see eye to eye on everything they're doing, but I still believe in the business. But one thing that I think is interesting is, because I know people that have invested in other businesses and then they get like really mad if it doesn't go the way they want it to.
Right.
That's a really, sorry to say, but I think that's a really dumb way to be an investor. I mean, when you go into it, you should have your eyes 100% open.
Yeah.
This thing can go to zero fast.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to accept that, you should keep your money in your pocket. Or at least make a determination. What do you want more, the potential return or the friend? If you're dealing with people I mean, I enjoyed both businesses. One was in a bit more of the one that paid off really well. I knew of that company anyhow because it was tangentially in the insurance industry.
Okay, right.
So they were in like medical services, but we were all part of kind of the same ecosystem, so to speak.
Right. Yeah.
So I knew of them that way. And they were solid people, really nice. And it was actually what the capital raise, it wasn't really an angel raise. It was one of the partners wanted out and the other people wanted him out. So they needed a place to raise the money.
Yeah.
So the guys that helped me eventually, that had helped me sell Omega, brought this around and said, this guy's a really good dude. And so anyhow, my only regret there is that I didn't put more in, obviously. But
yeah, of course. But it wasn't a bad return.
No. I mean, it was completely unexpected. I thought I was just doing a favor for a friend.
Okay,
So
great. So do you want to talk a little bit about Social Jukebox? So
Sure.
do you want to tell us what it is, what your business is, what your maybe what's going well, what you're struggling with? Just tell me a little bit more about it.
It's a SaaS business, software as a service. And so it's an automated posting service that posts people's evergreen content to Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And the jukeboxes are basically little databases within your kind of Social Jukebox account. So just as a for instance, because we're getting near the holidays, let's say, I mean, you could have a Halloween jukebox if you wanted. And maybe a couple of days before Halloween, you'd start sending out Halloween posts, just for fun. And then you could set that jukebox to start on the 29th of October and to stop at midnight on the 31st of October. And it's, I mean, beyond the automated piece, which of course is helpful because at least I found a lot of stuff I was posting. I mean, I just had it in a big spreadsheet anyhow. And I was just uploading it and then tracking what had, like when I last uploaded a section. But this just automates the whole process. So you just have all your stuff in there and then you pick when you want the contents of certain jukeboxes to post. Like, let's say that you've got posts, like you want to have a fun Friday morning post, like TGIF, something. You could have a jukebox just filled with that stuff, and every Friday it would post another thing from that. And the point here being that what it really lets you do is sit back and kind of plan your media. And I mean, if it's a massive business, like an Oracle or, something like that, or I don't know, Ford, something. I mean, these people are probably, going to have their own tools and like a team of people, whatever. But for smaller businesses, of which there are many, trying to keep up with social media is just nuts. And so from my perspective, it's a way to both take care of the posting. That's kind of the first hurdle. And then the second piece is to actually have a plan for the story you're trying to tell the market about what you do. And that only happens when you have a way to structure a process. Like, okay, here's the stuff I have. Here's when I want it to go. And how am I going to facilitate that? And this software allows you to do all of that.
And is there flexibility? Could you say that you want to release 5 posts on Monday, but actually you've got statistics to say that Wednesdays, no one, I'm making it up by the way, but Wednesdays, no one in your area logs on. So is it flexible enough to say I'll have 5 on Monday, 5 on Friday, but none on Wednesday?
Sure.
Or is it automated that you structure it every day?
You can do whatever you want.
Right. Okay.
If you wanted to post a prayer every Sunday morning, you could do that.
Right.
No, but I mean,
so could I flex it, as you say, like, so for holiday season, you can be flexible enough to say that you want to send a bunch of posts with a particular holiday season, but then how do you log onto a website which you click when you want them to be set? So you could say like holiday season or summer season, you don't want to do as much. So you just log on and select what days you want to do it. Is it monthly or is it weekly?
Well, it depends on what specific. I mean, in terms of the schedule, the way you would typically, I mean, you can set it up a couple ways. You can set it up that I want to start it to post at 10:15, and I want it to post every 3 hours after that. Until say 10:15 p.m. and then I want it to stop. You can also, I mean, so, and that could be Thursday schedule, whatever. But then you can also input to a jukebox. You can say, like, let's say you were a retailer and you had certain things you wanted to really highlight during the holiday season. I mean, you could have a jukebox filled with those promo posts, and that would start on, say, Black Friday. Or whenever, like when you ever view that your holiday season to start. So you'd start it then, and then if you view the Christmas season as ending on either Christmas or Boxing Day or whatever, I mean, you could just have it end then. So you can configure all this stuff. I mean, you can have everything scheduled for the jukebox, but you can have it turned off. Okay. But it can have you can have set it up so that it will automatically turn on at a prescribed date, and then turn off at a prescribed date. So you can go in and you could, on January 1st, I mean, as long as you have in your head what you want to have happen for the year, I mean, you could lay a good bit of that out. Right from the get-go.
And can you do videos as well as?
We haven't started doing videos just because of the upload bandwidth. And because the thing we're grappling with is, do we build our own upload tool, or do we kind of rent one from someone else?
Right, I see.
Because a lot comes down to like compression technologies and storage and stuff like that, and trying to make sure that adding it doesn't become some cost prohibitive server side thing. So we're working on it. But we haven't started video yet. We do GIFs and photos, obviously.
So we're sort of wrapping up towards the end of the podcast. I wanted to ask you, what part of your career so far have you found most rewarding? Or is it a little bit like your kids, you love every single one of them, and it's difficult to break it up? But ask you a hard question, what would you find most rewarding?
I liked Omega better than, the biggest negative for me of having an online business, and I love having an online business. It's perfect for my lifestyle. I was in Stockholm having a coffee with my kid, helping a blogger who was in Kyrgyzstan set up a jukebox, on my phone. We're just sitting in a cafe. I'm like, hold on one sec. And I walk the guy through it. So that part's awesome. But the only thing I don't like, Omega was great because there was a sense of like esprit de corps, and like a community of people. And part of this, is just being competitive. I don't have a single employee. Okay. I have a contract with a programming house in Belarus that does all my programming.
Right.
I have a VA in Philippines. I have a VA in the US. And then I have a guy that's a digital marketer that's here in Poland. So, but they're all independent contractors. And from a risk management perspective, or an overhead perspective, that's marvelous. But from a day-to-day perspective,
it's a community,
like I say,
isn't it, that you have.
But it was nicer, when you had this kind of group of people and you were all working towards stuff, and you hired people out of school and you kind of helped them develop their career a bit. That was, from my perspective. I'm in business to make money, but I would say the kind of soft benefit of helping develop other people, that was the most rewarding bit at Omega.
So what do you still want to achieve in the rest of your career? What's something that you could earmark that you want to achieve?
If I'm really honest, my biggest goals have to do with my 3 kids. It's more, I'm 58, so, and they're 20. So, to me, it's like the next few years are pretty critical, to just kind of make sure they get good trajectory. And none of them really need a lot of help from me, but it's more just, if I can keep them from stepping on any landmines or, kind of metaphorically.
Yeah.
Just, sometimes that's a great way to get a lesson, but if they can find it in a way which isn't quite as disruptive. So that, that's probably what I'm most focused on,
Right.
is wanting to see them have like momentum on what they want,
Yeah.
for themselves. For Social Jukebox, I definitely want to, grow it. And I'm not going to sound like a great goal setting guy, because I haven't, the reason I haven't set a goal for the business is really because I still don't understand the demand equation enough. I don't understand the marketing equation enough.
Okay.
I could tell you anything. We could sit here and BS you and say, yeah, I'm going to do 3 million in 3 years.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've got zero clue how I would get there.
Right.
And I'm not saying that you need to know how you're going to reach every goal when you set it, but it'd be nice if you weren't just yanking it out of your backside.
Yeah. Understand.
Yeah.
So where can people find you? On social media, email, website, whatever. What's the best way to
My
people
email is tim@socialjukebox.com. Always happy to answer any questions people have, and if I don't know the answer, I'll try to direct you to somebody who does have an answer. And I'm on Twitter, which is my next best place to find me, and my handle there is @Tim_Fargo, Fargo. And I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, but to be honest, not very often. Not very often. I'm really I'm a big Twitter guy.
Okay. Cool. All right. So just thank you so much for your time, Tim. It's been absolutely fascinating hearing your story, and I've still got a couple more questions, but I'm conscious of time for both of us, so I will end that there. So thank you so much for your time. I've really appreciated it.
Mark, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Excellent. All right, guys. Thank you very much for listening or watching on YouTube. Could you please, if you've got any feedback or you want to give any tips or questions or anything you'd like me to cover, then please contact me on absolutebusinessmindset@gmail.com. All the usual places for me. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, on YouTube and Patreon. So please do reach out to me if you have any questions or would like to give me some feedback. So please do. Thank you very much, everyone. This is the Absolute Business Mindset podcast. I appreciate your time. Thanks.